It was close to midnight when I called her the third time. I sat at the edge of our bed in Seattle, the house still except for the low hum of the fridge down the hall. The phone rang longer than usual, then finally clicked. Marcus, seriously? Her voice was slurred, tired. No, buzzed. What do you want now? I blinked. Just wanted to hear your voice, Tess. You haven't texted since morning. A pause. I heard music faintly in the background, laughter, then the clink of glass. I'm fine, Marcus, she snapped. I'm not one of your employees, okay? You don't get to check up on me like I'm late for a shift. That jab landed harder than she knew. I let out a slow breath, steadying my tone. I didn't say anything like that. I asked how you were doing. I thought you might like to know someone cares. Tessa laughed, short and sharp. Right? Cares. That's what this is. Not paranoia. Not your usual clingy, jealous routine. Jealous? I asked, still calm, even as my grip tightened around the phone. Tess, I asked if you were all right. You're in another city. At a party. That ended 2 hours ago. God, you're exhausting sometimes, she muttered. I started. She cut me off. I needed this trip. I'm not going to feel guilty because you're home stewing in your own thoughts. Then the line went silent for a moment. Only the muffled background noise. And then she said it. You always do this. You make everything about you. I'm just trying to breathe for once, Marcus. I'm not trying to trap you, I said quietly. I'm your husband. That still means something to me. She scoffed. Yeah? Well, maybe it means something different to me now. Click. She hung up. The screen went dark in my hand. I sat there, completely still. Outside the window, rain was streaking down in lazy lines, the street lamp glowing against it like it had something to confess. This wasn't the first time she'd snapped at me lately. But this? That tone in her voice, like I was nothing but a weight on her ankle, rattled something deep in me. I sat there for a long time after, just staring at the rain. We were supposed to be fine. We had a good house in a quiet Seattle neighborhood. Mortgage paid down. 2 golden retrievers, Hazel and Milo, who still barked every time the mail came. We had Saturday brunches, shared Spotify playlists, a fridge full of almond milk, and post-it notes with dumb jokes on the door. I worked in logistics for a medical distributor, nothing flashy, but steady. Tessa handled marketing for a dental equipment firm. She'd been climbing fast, lots of networking, big presentations, late dinners. More late dinners lately. We built something that was supposed to feel solid. But tonight, it felt like a leak had started somewhere, quiet and slow, but enough to soak through the drywall if I let it. And I wasn't sure how much longer I could pretend not to notice. She came home late Sunday evening, slamming the front door with a force that made Hazel bark and Milo lift his head from the couch. The moment she dropped her bag on the kitchen counter, I knew the tension hadn't left with the dial tone 2 nights ago. It had just been loading ammo. Well, she barked. You going to act weird all night, or just start the interrogation now? I stayed seated at the breakfast table, flipping the page of the newspaper like her words hadn't just sliced the air in two. Tessa, I said, calm as ever, you're the one who started with the accusations. I just called to check in, remember? She scoffed and threw open the fridge. Oh, please. You called 3 times, Marcus. 3. You think that's normal? That's not care. That's control. You ignored my first 2 texts. I replied, my voice still measured. You hadn't said a word all day. It's not control. It's concern. Last I checked, that's still allowed in marriage. She yanked out a bottle of sparkling water and twisted the cap with more force than necessary. You always do this. Make yourself sound like the calm, rational one while implying I'm some reckless party girl. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, she snapped, taking a long sip and avoiding my eyes. Your tone says it all. I stood slowly, picking up my coffee mug, and walked it to the sink. You had fun? I asked casually. The event looked pretty fancy in those Instagram stories. She stiffened. What stories? The ones your coworker Angela posted. Looked like a lively crowd. I turned just enough to catch her reaction. Her posture changed. Just slightly. But I noticed. The pause. The purse of her lips. The shift in her eyes. It was a corporate thing, she said quickly. You know how those are. People fake smiles for the VP, down cheap wine, and pretend to network. I nodded. Sure. Did you get to catch up with Olivia and Ethan while you were there? Tessa blinked. Why would I? What does that have to do with anything? I just thought, since Olivia mentioned she and Ethan might be visiting Portland this month, maybe you bumped into them. No, we didn't see each other. And even if we had, what's the point of this questioning? I leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching her now, watching the way she busied herself wiping a clean countertop, how her words got shorter, sharper. No point, I said mildly. Just curious. She turned around, arms crossed tightly across her chest. You don't ask questions out of curiosity, Marcus. You ask to trap people. I almost smiled at that, but didn't. You think I'm trying to trap you, Tess? She didn't answer, just stared at me like I'd flipped a switch she didn't expect. I let the silence sit, just long enough for her to feel it stretch. Then I turned and opened the dishwasher. Hazel walked into the kitchen and rested her head against my shin. Milo patted in after her, tail wagging gently. Tessa bent down and scratched Hazel behind the ears, avoiding my gaze again. You always read too much into things, she murmured. You've been doing it for months now. Every little comment, every missed call, you act like it's some red flag. I kept my back to her as I loaded a plate. Maybe that's because something is waving. Her head snapped up. I turned slowly, leaning on the counter again. You want to tell me why your voice was slurred on the phone Friday? Or why you sounded irritated like I'd interrupted something important? Her jaw tightened. I had 2 glasses of wine at a networking event, and I was exhausted. Sue me. I nodded. Fair enough. She blinked, like she didn't expect me to back off so easily. But I wasn't backing off. I was observing. Something had shifted. Subtle, but it was there. The way she recoiled from even basic questions. The way she attacked, deflected, accused, when all I'd done was ask if she had a good time. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I was listening differently now. Looking differently. And somewhere deep down, a quiet voice in me stirred. One that had gone quiet for years. Something wasn't right. And no matter how calm she stayed on the surface, Tessa was leaking panic at the seams. It was a cold Wednesday when the text came in. Unknown number. Hi. You don't know me personally, but I work with your wife. Can we meet? It's about something I saw at the Portland event. It's important. Please don't tell Tessa. Amber. I stared at it for a solid minute. Then typed back. Me. Name a time and place. She replied within seconds. 1:15 p.m. Cedar and Elm Cafe. Downtown. Cedar and Elm was a quiet spot. Half bookstore, half coffee shop. Tessa and I used to go there on rainy Sundays. I hadn't been in over a year. When I walked in, the smell of old pages and cinnamon hit me like memory fog. I spotted her right away, mid-20s, red coat, tapping her thumb nervously against her phone. She had the anxious energy of someone who almost talked herself out of being here 5 times. I walked up. Amber. She looked up, startled. Yeah, Marcus? I nodded and took the seat across from her. She hesitated, looking around like she expected someone to follow her in. Then she leaned forward and lowered her voice. I don't even know where to begin. I shouldn't be doing this. Technically, it's against protocol. But you need to know. I didn't say a word. Just waited. Amber swallowed. Your wife, at the Portland event, she wasn't just there for networking. Her hands shook slightly as she opened her phone and scrolled. I didn't want to believe it. I mean, I've always liked Tessa. She's sharp, charismatic. But she was different that night. She slid her phone across the table. On the screen was a photo, dark and grainy, but clear enough. A group of people stood outside on a balcony, laughing, drinks in hand. But the focus wasn't the crowd. It was the couple in the center. Tessa, unmistakably, with both arms around a man's waist. His hand rested low on her back. His face was turned just enough to catch the light. I didn't need to squint. It was Ethan, Olivia's husband. Amber spoke softly. That wasn't just a hug. She held on to him for a long time. And later, they disappeared for about an hour. My heart slowed to a crawl. I didn't blink. Didn't move. She added quickly, I didn't want to assume anything. But when I saw your name in the company directory, I just couldn't sit on it. I'd want someone to tell me if it were me. I looked at the photo again. Tessa's expression, half laugh, half whisper, wasn't one of a woman caught in a joke. It was intimate. Too intimate. Did anyone else see? Amber shook her head. People were tipsy. No one said anything. But I remembered. And I had to say something. I know it's not my place. I raised a hand, stopping her. You did the right thing. She looked like she might cry from the relief. I sat back, exhaling slowly. The coffee between us had gone cold. The bookstore hum faded. All I could hear was the sound of my heartbeat, deep and steady, like boots hitting a long, empty hallway. Something inside me crystallized. Not rage. Not even shock. Just clarity. Amber handed me the phone again. You can forward it to yourself. I saved the original. I sent the photo to my number. Thank you, Amber. She nodded, brushing hair from her face. I'm sorry. I stood. No, I said quietly. I'm grateful. I left the cafe into the gray afternoon, slid the phone into my coat pocket, and started walking. I didn't know where I was heading, but for the first time in days, my steps felt certain. By the time Tessa got home that evening, something in me had gone quiet. Not numb, not defeated, just still. I'd already taken care of dinner, grilled chicken, roasted potatoes, nothing fancy. I didn't say anything when she walked in, just nodded from the kitchen as Hazel trotted up to greet her. Smells good, she said cautiously, setting her purse on the table. You cooked? I nodded. Yep. Plates in the oven. Still warm. She hesitated by the doorway, studying me like I was a new piece of furniture in an old room. You're quiet, she said after a moment. I shrugged. Long day. She forced a smile. Same here. Meetings all afternoon. Didn't even get time for lunch. She took a step toward me. You want to sit and eat together? Already ate, I replied, rinsing a dish. Oh. She sounded like she didn't quite know what to do with that. Tessa picked at her food in silence. I stayed in the living room, flipping through a magazine, not reading a single word, just listening. Eventually, she set down her fork and walked over. Okay, what's going on? I looked up. Nothing. Marcus, don't give me that. You've barely looked at me since I walked in. I stood slowly, walked over to the kitchen, and poured myself some water. She followed. You're not talking. You're not asking about my day. You didn't even make a snarky comment about my perfume. What gives? I turned to face her. Calm. Even. You said I was controlling when I checked in before. I'm just giving you space. Her mouth opened, then closed again. That's not what I meant. No. I tilted my head slightly. Then what did you mean? I meant, she paused, flustered. I don't know. I was tired. I didn't want to argue. I nodded slowly. So now you're rested? She didn't answer. The silence between us grew roots. Tessa stepped closer, reaching for my hand. Can we not do this Cold War thing? Please? I miss you. I let her take my hand, held it, then gently pulled away. Her face broke for just a moment. Marcus, what is happening to you? I looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes searched mine for something familiar, something warm. But I had nothing to offer her. Not right now. She reached up, brushing her fingers against my cheek. Hey, she whispered. Talk to me. Please. Whatever this is, we can fix it. I stepped back. I've already said everything I needed to, I said quietly. Her jaw clenched. That's not fair. No. I replied, voice calm, even gentle. It's honest. And with that, I walked past her. No yelling. No accusations. No storm. Just the kind of silence that thundered louder than any scream could. Behind me, she stood frozen in the middle of the room, like someone who just realized they were dancing alone. The office smelled like leather and old wood. Framed degrees lined the wall behind Claudia Mercer's desk, but her presence made the titles unnecessary. She didn't smile when I walked in, just gestured to the seat across from her and opened a slim folder. Marcus Lee, she said, flipping to the second page. You're ready to proceed? I nodded. Yes. No more waiting. She closed the folder with a soft snap. Tell me everything. Don't edit. Don't guess what matters. That's my job. So I told her. I told her about the calls. Tessa's tone. The shift in her eyes. The Portland trip. I showed her the photo Amber had sent me. The one with Tessa and Ethan, her hands clinging to him like he was gravity itself. Claudia didn't flinch. Just nodded and made a few notes in her sharp, slanted handwriting. Your wife works at Densely and Hartwell, yes? Senior marketing consultant. Just promoted last quarter. Do you believe this relationship with Ethan violates company conduct? I exhaled slowly. I think they did more than hug at that event. And if they used corporate time, travel, or resources for it, it's a breach. Claudia looked up. Do you have anyone inside the company who might verify? I might, I said. Her co-worker Amber. She's the one who told me. Claudia nodded once. Then that's our next step. I'll file the divorce paperwork and include a formal request for internal review. We'll let their legal team know you're prepared to pursue evidence. Her pen stopped moving. And Marcus, just so we're clear, once this starts, there's no hiding anymore. If you pull this thread, You'd better be ready to watch the whole sweater unravel. I leaned forward. I've already seen the seams split. She gave a tight nod. All right, I'll draft everything. You'll have documents to review by Friday. I stood, shook her hand. Thank you, Claudia. She held my gaze. Don't thank me yet. This part gets worse before it gets better. I stepped outside into the sharp afternoon air and pulled out my phone. Me. Hi, Amber. Can we talk again? Just 5 minutes. It took 20 for her to reply. Amber, is it about the photo? Me. Yes. I might need your help. I waited. 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then came the message. Okay. But I'm scared, Marcus. I don't want to lose my job. Me. You won't. I promise. I'll keep your name off anything official unless you're fully comfortable. But what you saw matters. It could make a real difference. The pause was longer this time. Then, I'll do it. I'll talk. But only to your lawyer. Once. Me? That's more than enough. Amber, I'm not doing this to hurt Tessa. She's always been kind to me. But this wasn't right. Me? You're not hurting her. You're helping the truth stand up. She didn't reply again, but the checkmark showed she read it. And that was enough for now. I slipped my phone back into my pocket, the weight of things settling deeper into my chest. But this time, it felt less like drowning and more like climbing. I didn't know how long the road ahead would be, but piece by piece, I was rebuilding something Tessa never thought I'd reach for again. Control. Claudia slid the flash drive across the polished surface of her desk. No commentary, she said quietly. Just watch. The lights in her office were dim. A cold rain tapped softly against the window pane behind her. I plugged the drive into her laptop and clicked the file. The screen lit up with silent, time-stamped footage. I recognized the layout immediately, Dinsley and Hartwell's 9th floor. The conference wing. Tessa walked into frame, laughing. Ethan followed her. He wasn't laughing, but the way his eyes traced her every move spoke volumes. They stopped just inside the conference room. Tessa glanced behind her, toward the hallway. Then she shut the door. Claudia leaned back, arms crossed. This clip's from 3 weeks ago, 2:11 p.m. You'll want to watch the full minute. The door had a narrow glass panel. The camera angle was poor, but not poor enough. I saw the blur of motion, the moment Ethan stepped forward and pressed his hand against the wall beside her head. I saw the pause, the kind that wasn't hesitation, but anticipation. And then, their mouths met. Not a peck, not a stumble, but something slow and familiar. Like it had happened before. Tessa reached up, fingers brushing the back of his neck. I watched in silence. When the video ended, I didn't say anything. Just sat there, letting the image hang in my mind. Claudia waited. Then, there are 3 more clips. One from the elevator. One outside the office building. One in the break room after hours. I didn't need to see them. I believe you, I said. She reached into a file folder and pulled out a neatly stacked set of papers. Divorce petition, revised. Includes footage as supporting evidence of infidelity. No fault was an option. You still want to cite cause? Yes. Okay. She turned the papers toward me, slid me a pen. Sign on the bottom. I took the pen, signed the first line, then the second, the third. When I finished, she gathered the papers like someone handling evidence from a crime scene. Deliberate, respectful. She gave me a look, steady, not soft. This will move quickly now. Given the evidence, she'll have very little room to fight. I nodded. That's the idea. Do you want to send the notice today? Yes. She opened her drawer and placed the stack gently inside. Then we're set. I stood. The room felt colder now. Or maybe I did. Thanks, Claudia. You've been calm through all of this, she said, watching me carefully. Most clients, they react. They rage. But you've barely flinched. I already felt the hit, I said. This is just me standing up after it. She nodded once. Then I think you'll be just fine. The sidewalk outside smelled of wet pavement and pine needles. Downtown was quiet, fog curling around the streetlights like smoke. I stood there for a moment, watching people pass by, their lives untouched. Mine had just closed a chapter, not with a slam, but with a signature, and the kind of silence that follows only when you finally stop trying to fix something that died quietly months ago. Still here? Give this video a like, it really helps. The living room was dressed for celebration. Tessa had arranged every detail herself. White tulips on the side table, wine chilling, soft jazz humming beneath the surface. Candles flickered, throwing gold light against the glass cabinets. Her friends filled the space with laughter, glasses clinking, warm chatter buzzing over the hardwood floors. And there she was, center of it all, wearing a silver dress that shimmered when she turned her head. She looked beautiful, effortlessly so, as if nothing in her world had shifted. I stood near the back of the room, one hand in my pocket, watching her glide through conversations, smile poised, eyes scanning the room now and then, always drifting back to me. She was expecting something. Of course she was. When Olivia arrived, Tessa's best friend since college, Tessa lit up. Olivia hugged her tight, handed her a gift bag with gold tissue paper, then leaned toward her ear with something whispered that made Tessa giggle. I waited. I knew the moment would come. And it did, about 30 minutes in, after cake, after toasts. She stood near the fireplace with her wine, looking around, then raised her voice gently over the music. "Marcus," she called out. All eyes turned. She smiled. "Don't tell me you didn't plan anything. Not even a little surprise." Laughter bubbled from the guests. I stepped forward slowly. And I didn't smile. I reached into the inside pocket of my blazer and pulled out a white envelope. Walked straight to her. Quiet. Steady. She tilted her head, still smiling. "What is this?" I handed it to her without a word. She opened the flap. Her brow furrowed as she pulled out the contents. Pages, thick and crisp. Then her smile faltered. Her fingers trembled slightly. The laughter in the room faded. "What? What is this?" "Your birthday gift," I said. "Divorce papers." A silence fell like a stone. Her mouth opened, then closed. "What?" she whispered. Behind her, Olivia gasped. "Marcus, are you out of your mind? You're doing this now?" She stepped forward, eyes blazing, and raised her hand. I caught her wrist before it landed. Firm, controlled. "Careful," I said calmly. "You don't want to look foolish in front of your friends." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "How dare you?" "Maybe," I cut in. "Your husband Ethan deserves her. They seem to get along so well." The room snapped into a hush. Tessa's face turned white. Olivia blinked. "What did you just say?" I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. One photo, then another. The kiss in the conference room. The arm around the waist. Tessa stumbling through explanations would come later, but now, she said nothing. Just stood there, frozen in place. Olivia took a single step back, her voice barely a breath. "That's not true." I didn't answer. She turned slowly to Tessa. "Tell me it's not true." Tessa's mouth opened, but the words didn't come. Olivia stared at her for a moment longer. And then, she dropped the gift bag on the floor and ran out of the room, heels echoing through the hallway, the door slamming behind her. The crowd dispersed quickly after that. No one said much. A few awkward nods. Some mumbled goodbyes. Within 10 minutes, the room was empty. Except for Tessa. And me. She still hadn't moved. Just stood in the glow of the fireplace. Divorce papers trembling in her hands. Birthday candles still burning behind her, forgotten. The silence stretched long and bitter. She finally spoke, her voice shaking. "You ruined everything." I looked at her for the last time that night and said, "No, I just unwrapped what was already broken." And then I walked upstairs, leaving her with the only gift she truly earned. Truth. I barely made it halfway up the stairs when the front door burst open again. Heavy footsteps. Angled fast. Angry. "Marcus." I turned slowly. Ethan stood there in the foyer, chest heaving, jaw tight, his fists curled at his sides. His blazer hung uneven on his shoulders, and his tie was gone. He looked like he'd just been thrown out of a moving car, and maybe he had, emotionally speaking. He charged forward until we were face to face, breathing hard. "What the hell did you just do to Olivia?" His voice cracked with fury. She ran out sobbing. "Said you showed her some fake, some twisted photo. What game are you playing, man?" I didn't move. Didn't blink. I let him talk. "You humiliate Tessa in front of her friends on her birthday, and then you drag me and Olivia into it? You really think that's fair?" My voice was calm. Cold. "Fair. Yes," he spat. "You want to divorce her? Fine. But don't poison her friendships just to make a scene. You should take a better look at the footage," I said evenly. "What I showed Olivia wasn't poison. It was a mirror." Ethan's mouth tensed. "You have no idea what you've started." "Oh, I think I do." He scoffed. "You think exposing us makes you a man? You think it makes you righteous?" I stepped down the final stair, meeting him at eye level. "No," I said. What makes me a man is doing this with a clear conscience. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up. His eyes dropped to the screen. The video paused mid-frame. Him and Tessa, close, faces too near, her hand tangled in the collar of his shirt. You want to keep going? I asked. You want to test how much more Olivia needs to see? Ethan's eyes flicked up. For a second, he wasn't furious. He was afraid. You're not going to ruin my marriage for a mistake, he said, but his voice had lost its edge. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. You already did that part. He took a shaky breath. She doesn't know the whole story. She knows enough. He stepped back like he'd been struck. His hands opened, then closed again, as if he wanted to grab something. Me, time, the past, but there was nothing to hold on to. I stepped closer, quieting my voice to something only he could hear. You're not her, I said. So you'll get the punishment she was spared. Ethan's face twisted in confusion. What does that mean? I didn't answer. I just let him sit in the weight of those words. Let him feel the chill of it. Because I'd watched Tessa destroy what we had with a lie behind her eyes and a smile on her lips. But Ethan? He was the second key in the ignition. He knew what he was doing, and he did it anyway. He wasn't the husband being deceived. He was the friend betraying both sides. A moment passed, then another, and then, finally, his shoulders sagged. His eyes dropped to the floor. The fire had gone out of him. He turned without another word and walked toward the door. The room was still half lit from the party, balloons drooping from the ceiling, empty glasses sweating on the counter, the cake untouched. I stood there in the silence, letting it settle, letting the house return to stillness. Through the front windows, I could see the guests who hadn't fled still whispering near the sidewalk, unsure whether to stay or vanish. They wouldn't be back. No one would. That chapter was over now. And what followed? That was mine to write. The last guest car pulled away slowly from the curb, taillights fading into the dark. And then it was just us. I stepped back into the living room where the wreckage of celebration still lingered, half-melted candles, party plates with smudged frosting, wine glasses catching the last reflections of the chandelier overhead. Tessa stood in the middle of it, barefoot now, her heels abandoned somewhere under the coffee table. Her eyes were puffy, mascara clinging to the corners. She looked at me like I was someone she used to know. I didn't say a word. She took one step forward, then another, and then, suddenly, she dropped. Her knees hit the floor, hard, and her voice, raw, jagged, tumbled out of her like something broken finally letting go. Marcus, please. Please don't do this. I didn't move. She crawled toward me, hands trembling, until she was close enough to grab the hem of my shirt. Please, just talk to me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Her forehead pressed against my leg. I looked down at her. The woman I once promised a lifetime to. Get up, Tessa. No, she whispered. Not until you hear me. She looked up at me, tears trailing down her cheeks. It was a mistake, she said. It didn't mean anything. I don't know what I was thinking. I felt invisible, like I wasn't enough anymore. And Ethan, he just made me feel seen. That's all it was. But it didn't matter. It wasn't real. She reached for my hands, wrapping her fingers around them like a child clinging to something warm. I was stupid. I was weak. But I never stopped loving you. Marcus, please, it's still my birthday. Can we just start over? Pretend this didn't happen? Please, her voice cracked. I'll do anything. Just give me another chance. Please don't throw us away. I let her hold my hands for a moment. Her grip was tight, desperate. The kind of desperation that only shows up when the consequences finally arrive. I could have yelled. I could have said all the things I'd been holding inside. The humiliation, the betrayal, the months of silence she fed me like scraps. But I didn't, because none of it would have landed harder than what I did next. I pulled my hands free, gently. No force, no cruelty, just a quiet, final goodbye in the gesture. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. Her sob turned into a broken sound, like the air leaving her lungs all at once. Tessa, I said softly, you've already used up every chance. She shook her head violently. No, we can fix this. I can fix this. Don't say that. I took one step back, then another. Her hands reached out again, like she was trying to stop a train with her fingertips. Marcus, she whispered, please don't walk away. I turned toward the hallway. Don't do this, she cried. Please, just stay. Say something. Anything. My hand touched the doorway frame. I paused, then looked back one last time. She was still on her knees, surrounded by the remnants of her own celebration, streamers sagging, the banner above the fireplace reading "Happy Birthday" in faded gold letters. "I did say something," I said. "You just never listened." And then I stepped out of the room. Her sobs followed me down the hallway like echoes from a past life. I didn't stop, didn't look back, just reached the guest room, closed the door behind me, and let the silence fall. A silence that, for once, felt like peace. The courtroom smelled of paper, dust, and finality. Tessa sat across from me, her posture stiff, chin slightly raised, hands folded neatly in her lap. Not a tear, not a flicker of emotion, just a blank, polished stillness, like she'd rehearsed this part the most. Her attorney did the talking. Mine did the proving. Claudia moved like a scalpel, precise, sharp, unshaken. She laid out the facts one by one. The submitted video footage, the timestamped texts, the testimonies collected during the internal investigation. When Amber's name came up, Tessa's jaw twitched. She acted against company protocol. Tessa's lawyer muttered. An unverified source. She's not the only one. Claudia cut in smoothly. Several others in the department later confirmed the relationship. Dinsley and Hartwell initiated internal review based on this testimony. Both employees were terminated for violation of conduct policy. The judge raised a brow. That includes your client? Claudia nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Lee and Mr. Ethan Brooks were both dismissed last week. The company confirmed it in writing. Tessa said nothing. No defense. Just silence. When my turn came to speak, I stood. Not to perform. Just to finish what I started. I'm not here for revenge, I said. This wasn't about anger. It was about truth. About no longer pretending things were okay when they hadn't been for a long time. I gave her time. I gave her chances. And when she chose someone else behind my back, she didn't just break our marriage, she buried it. The courtroom stayed quiet. The judge nodded once. Thank you, Mr. Lee. When the verdict came, it wasn't a surprise. Full dissolution granted. Property awarded in my favor. No spousal support. Custody of Hazel and Milo. Our dogs, our only shared children, was mine. As I gathered my documents, someone stepped toward me from the hallway. Marcus. I turned. It was Olivia. Her face was worn but softer now. Less angry. Less sure of everything she'd once defended. I owe you an apology, she said. For what I said that night. For not believing you. I nodded. You didn't owe me belief. Just honesty. I have that now, she said. They were both fired. I got the call 2 days ago. Ethan didn't even tell me. He just packed a bag and left. I didn't say anything. She took a breath. It's a mess. But thank you. For the truth. No one else had the spine to say it out loud. I offered a quiet reply. I wasn't brave. Just done. She gave a small nod, eyes damp but steady, then turned and walked away. And just like that, the court emptied out. My past walked one direction. I walked the other. 3 weeks had passed since the court date. The house was quieter now, in a way that didn't ache anymore. Just calm. Just mine. Hazel lay at my feet near the fireplace, Milo snoring softly against the couch. The evenings had taken on a rhythm again. Simple dinners, long walks, clean sheets without tension beneath them. And then one afternoon, I got a message. Amber, hey Marcus. I know it's been a bit, but want to grab a coffee sometime? I have something to tell you. Good news this time. I stared at the screen for a second before replying. Me. Sure. Name the place. She chose the same quiet spot downtown, Cedar and Elm Cafe. Somehow, it felt like the right kind of full circle. When I walked in, she was already there by the window, 2 mugs on the table, a familiar red coat slung over the back of the chair. She smiled when she saw me, and this time, it wasn't nervous. Hey, she said. I was starting to think you'd ghost me. I thought about it, I teased. But you bought the coffee. That's a hard deal to beat. She laughed, lighter than before. So, I got promoted. I raised a brow. Seriously? She nodded, pride flickering in her eyes. They said it was for professional integrity and leadership under pressure. I didn't think anyone noticed. But apparently, doing the right thing still matters somewhere. I lifted my mug. To doing the right thing. We clinked cups. She leaned in a little, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. I almost didn't say anything, you know. That night before I texted you, I deleted the message 3 times. I'm glad you didn't. She gave me a look. You're doing better. I can tell. I'm getting there, I said, one honest day at a time. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching people pass on the sidewalk outside. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the weight of memory dragging behind me. Amber looked at me thoughtfully. You know, I don't believe in fate or any of that stuff. No, she smiled. But I think sometimes the truth has a way of rewarding people who don't run from it. I met her gaze and felt the spark before I even understood it. Quiet, unexpected, real. And I thought to myself, she might be right. And that was the end of my story. Amber didn't owe me anything. Yet she stood up, risked her job, and told the truth when everyone else stayed silent. Did she do the right thing, or would you have stayed out of it if you were in her place? Let me know in the comments.